Do you find yourself constantly seeking reassurance in your relationships, repeatedly asking if everything's okay, replaying conversations in your mind, or wondering if you did something wrong? I'm Dr. Annie Campanile, trauma survivor and professional coach, and in this episode, we are taking a deep dive into this pattern, something I call Velcro Trust. We'll explore where it comes from, how it impacts our relationships, and how we can begin cultivating trust that feels secure and mutual. Welcome to Heal Your Trauma, Find Your Voice, the podcast for trauma survivors ready to break free from people-pleasing and self-doubt. I'm Dr. Annie Campanile, here to help you trust your intuition, communicate clearly, and build relationships that fulfill you. Each week, you'll learn practical tips to heal past wounds and turn surviving into thriving. Welcome back to episode 7. Last week, we started a 4-episode series on the trust patterns that shape our relationships, often before we are even aware of them. And today, we're taking a deeper dive into the first pattern, Velcro Trust. If you're new to the podcast or didn't catch the last episode, don't worry. I'll bring you up to speed. Here's a 2-minute review. A trust pattern is the habitual way we decide whether someone feels safe, reliable, or worth opening up to. These patterns develop over time in response to day-to-day experiences and even our earliest relationships. There are 3 main trust patterns. Velcro trust, when we hold on too tightly, seek deep connection quickly, and fear rejection or emotional distance. Cactus trust, when we keep people at a distance, avoid vulnerability, and rely mostly on ourselves. And kindred trust, the healthiest trust pattern where relationships feel safe, mutual, and supportive, without fear of being abandoned or controlled. Most of us have developed Velcro trust or cactus trust, especially if we've been through trauma. But the good news is that trust patterns can change, and that's what this series is all about. Now let's take a deeper look at Velcro trust, when we hold on tightly even when the other person isn't treating us well. The name Velcro trust isn't just a catchy phrase. It actually mirrors how Velcro itself works. You might know Velcro as those little fasteners used on shoes, bags, or jackets, where tiny hooks on one strip attach to soft loops on another, forming a strong bond. This is a perfect metaphor for Velcro trust. Our emotional hooks latch on tightly to someone who feels safe, but that bond can become so intense that it's hard to separate without distress. And just like real Velcro, the more we press in, the stronger the attachment becomes, sometimes making it very painful to pull away. The challenge is that while Velcro is great for fastening things, relationships thrive when trust is mutual and relaxed, not dependent on gripping tightly. Velcro trust is all about holding on tightly, regardless of how the other person behaves. It can feel like this: instant connection and deep emotional intimacy. The certainty that this person is special, different, the one who finally sees you. A sense of urgency to bond quickly. Sharing personal stories, opening up fast, and expecting the same in return, and worry that you aren't enough or you aren't doing enough. When the other person doesn't match your intensity, it can feel confusing, even devastating. You might find yourself texting more often, constantly checking for replies and rereading past messages for reassurance, feeling anxious, overanalyzing interactions, and wondering if you did something wrong. Ignoring red flags and focusing on what the relationship could be rather than what it actually is. Or hanging on to control so tightly to try to stay safe that it turns into micromanagement of yourself and other people. That's exactly what happened to my client. Let's call her Lindsay. Lindsay was a natural leader, a confident entrepreneur. In business, she made clear, strategic decisions and she never second-guessed herself. But when it came to personal relationships, it was a different story. Every time Lindsay started dating someone new, she merged with them. Within weeks, she was shifting her entire schedule to accommodate their routine. If they were early risers, she suddenly started waking up at 5 a.m., even though she hated mornings. If they loved hiking, she found herself buying expensive gear, even though she preferred yoga. She even changed her diet to match theirs. One month she was vegan. The next month, she only ate meat. This wasn't just affecting Lindsay's sense of identity, it was wreaking havoc on her nervous system. When she started coaching sessions with me, Lindsay was exhausted. She had constant stomach pain, tension headaches, and trouble sleeping. She told me, I don't understand why I lose myself every time I'm in a relationship. I feel strong in every other area of my life, but the moment I start dating someone, I completely disappear. Lindsay was experiencing Velcro trust, that urgent pull toward closeness that made her feel safe in the moment, but left her feeling lost in the long run. One of the lesser known aspects of Velcro trust is the tendency to offer unsolicited advice or feel an overwhelming need to fix other people's problems. If you have Velcro trust, you might believe that your care and concern are best expressed through guidance, even when it isn't asked for. This can sometimes come across as pushy or controlling, even when your intentions are good. Take my client Lindsay. In addition to losing herself in relationships, she often found herself acting as the problem solver in her business and in her dating life. If her partner was struggling at work, she researched solutions and suggested networking contacts. If they seemed stressed, she planned activities to help them unwind. At first, her partners often appreciated her attentiveness, but over time, they began to pull away and be frustrated. They didn't always want solutions. Sometimes they just wanted to be heard. Lindsay didn't realize that her compulsion to help was actually her way of holding on, of making herself indispensable and controlling her circumstances so she wouldn't be abandoned. But instead of bringing people closer, this habit often drove them away. Learning to step back and offer support only when it was requested was a key part of Lindsay's healing journey. If you've ever wondered why you hold on so tightly or struggle to feel secure in relationships, you're not alone. You'll see it happening all around you if you watch for it. Sometimes I watch reality shows just to see trust patterns in action. Just like the other trust patterns, Velcro trust is shaped by experiences that go all the way back to childhood and our nervous system's survival instincts. Let's take a look at where it comes from. Here are some childhood experiences that might sound familiar to you if you have Velcro trust. Did you grow up craving more closeness than you received? Did caregivers sometimes provide warmth, but other times withdraw, and you didn't know why? If love felt inconsistent, your nervous system might have learned to cling to connection whenever it appeared, just in case it disappeared again. When Lindsay reflected on her childhood, she realized that she had always been the one chasing closeness. Her mom was loving, but emotionally distant. Affection came in waves. Some days, her mom would ask about her day and how she was feeling and what her friends were like. And on other days, her mom barely seemed to notice her. Lindsay said this left her walking on eggshells, never knowing which mom she was going to get. She learned early on that if she wanted love, she had to hang on to it when it appeared. Clinging to connection isn't just emotional, it's biological. It's our nervous system saying, stay close, this is how we survive. As humans, we are wired for connection. But when relationships feel uncertain, our brain sees that as a threat and then goes into overdrive trying to figure out how to keep us safe. Lindsay experienced it this way. From the time she was a child, Lindsay had struggled with anxiety. But when she felt deeply connected in friendships or later in romantic relationships, her anxiety disappeared. Her racing thoughts calmed down, her muscle tension relaxed, and she felt energized. But the moment she sensed someone disapproving of her or pulling away, the anxiety surged back with full force. Her stomach became upset, and her migraines returned. It's no wonder that she worked so hard to hold on to relationships. Now that you've seen how Velcro trust affected Lindsay, let's take a moment to identify how Velcro trust might be showing up in your life or in the people you care about. Here are 5 signs that you are practicing Velcro trust. 1. You feel an overwhelming desire for closeness early on in relationships. 2. You struggle with anxiety when someone doesn't quickly respond to your texts or emails. 3. You constantly worry about whether you said or did something wrong. 4. You find yourself giving unsolicited advice, even when it irritates your coworkers, your friends, or your partner. And 5. You change yourself, your appearance, your schedule, your preferences, even your values, in order to align with someone you care about. And here are 4 signs of Velcro trust in others. 1. They become intensely attached to new relationships very quickly. 2. They put other people's needs ahead of their own, even when that causes them harm. 3. They seek reassurance often, repeatedly asking, "Are we okay?" And 4. They volunteer to take on extra responsibilities and then become resentful of doing more than other people are doing. Remember, Velcro Trust doesn't just show up in romantic relationships. It can sneak into friendships, family dynamics, and even work. Ever known someone who texted, "Are you mad at me?" when you didn't reply quickly enough? Or maybe a colleague apologized for expressing their idea during a meeting. That's Velcro Trust in action. When you bring awareness to the behaviors of Velcro Trust, it becomes easier to understand what's behind it for you. This brings me to this week's reflection activity, which will help build your awareness of how Velcro Trust might be impacting your life. During the next 2 days, if you feel the urge to give unsolicited advice or to seek reassurance from someone, pause and ask yourself what you're afraid of, and then write down what you notice. This is a different question than what you might be used to asking yourself, so let me repeat that. If you feel the urge to give somebody unsolicited advice or to seek reassurance from someone, see if you can pause and then ask yourself, what am I afraid of? What am I afraid might happen if I don't help this person with my advice? What am I afraid will happen if I don't get reassurance that this person's okay with me or we're okay? When you ask yourself what you're afraid of, the answer might not seem logical, and that's totally normal. Our fears often are not logical because they're based on history, not necessarily what's true right now. See if you can notice not only the thoughts that cross your mind, but also how your body responds when you ask yourself what you're afraid of. You might feel butterflies in your stomach, or you might feel sad or even angry. Don't worry, there are no wrong responses. Like other trust patterns, Velcro Trust is deeply ingrained. But by making small shifts, you can start to build security within yourself rather than relying on control or constant reassurance from others. Changing our trust patterns is a process, and you don't have to do it alone. A trusted counselor or coach can be incredibly helpful. If you'd like to learn more about coaching sessions with me, you'll find a link in today's show notes. Next week, we'll explore a trust pattern that is the opposite of Velcro Trust, and that's cactus trust. If you or someone you love tends to avoid emotional closeness, withdraw when things get too personal, or feel more comfortable being independent than relying on others, you'll want to tune in. We're going to explore how cactus trust can create loneliness without meaning to, and what it looks like to create relationships where closeness feels comfortable. Until then, if there's a question you'd like me to answer on the show, send me a text. There's a link in today's show notes. And please share this episode with a friend. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Heal Your Trauma, Find Your Voice. I'm Dr. Annie Campanile, reminding you that healing is possible and you don't have to do it alone. See you next week.